Well, this is a great video, great news. Although it is definitely kind of sad to be lied to for 20 years. But this is how it went. I moved into this house 20 years ago, and when I did, I was told that the property right next to mine, and that's about 150 feet by 50 feet, was no longer connected to this property. My property was still 150 feet by 150 feet, but that part supposedly had been separated and sold to a guy named Steve, who was a farmer, for $1,000. And that a contract was signed, because the water meter is on that property, that whoever lives in this house can work on that thing for 100 years without Steve bitching or complaining. Okay? Now, Steve said that, and also Anita, the woman that I bought the house from. There was no reason to doubt this story. Now, Anita sold me the house, monthly payments until it was paid off. And I thought that was really nice of her. And, she seemed like a nice woman. I never caught her in no lies or nothing like that. But, man, it takes sometimes a long time to find out that a person lied to you. Now, what happened was this. Steve died 3 years ago. Okay? And the year that he died, I talked to his wife, and I wanted to ask her if I could buy that land back, and then I could connect it back to this property. I've been fantasizing about that for 15 years, about different things that I could do. And the point that that property being separated prevented me from doing things like putting a privacy fence up, because it's got to be 4 feet away from the property line. 4 feet back is my house. A carport, one of those carports that's portable, and you could park your car underneath there to keep the hell from hitting your car. I couldn't do that because it's got to be 4 feet away from the property line, and that's my house. Just lots of things, okay? So, and also the storm shelter. Next year I'm going to be getting a storm shelter and putting it on my property, and I was going to go ahead and put it there. Even though it wasn't 4 feet away from the property line, I was going to put it there anyway because I really need it. We're in a tornado state of Kansas. Okay, so anyway, what happened was this. The property got sold. I didn't know this. When I called the city, I was complaining about the grass in that 50 by 150 feet. I was complaining because last year nobody mowed it, and in fact nobody mowed it the year before that either. So 2 years went by, nobody mowed, the grass got really tall, fell over, and that was it. Okay, this year we had 3 snakes come out of there already, some rats, some mice, and I got kids, children, and I wanted that grass mowed. Now the city will charge you $100 and mow your grass. You have no choice. You get a bill for it. They'll come and mow it if you don't mow it, and then charge you $100. Now it's probably higher now. That was years ago. So 2 days later, the owner comes out and they mow. But when they mowed, they did not mow that area, the 50 by 150 feet. Did not mow it. So I'm thinking, okay, they probably found out that I'm the one who complained, and so they're going to be an ass about it and mow everything else but that. Oh, and when I asked the city, can you tell me if Steve's wife still owns it, and so I could see if I could maybe buy it and then I could connect it back to my land, and they said it was sold. Didn't know who it was sold to, but it was sold. I said, great. Well, there goes that dream. Okay, so a week and a half goes by, nothing happens. I thought maybe they were going to come back and mow it later. They didn't. Okay, so I called the city again. Now, in the meantime, I went online and I looked at the area. There's a map of the whole town, and you can see all these little squares. In fact, I got some. No, that's not it, is it? Where's that paper? I don't know where I put it. Alright, anyway, it shows you the area that you own, little squares. And when I looked at the map, it showed that well, and it showed the big tree. Okay, and I'm thinking, that's weird. Why is it going across that area? It should be before that area. But then I noticed the picture was old, too. It was before I even lived here, and I've lived here for 20 years. Okay, there was all sorts of signs, buildings that are no longer there, never were there the whole time I'm here. So I knew that the picture was actually a long time ago. Okay, so the city said, okay, we'll talk to them and get them out there to mow it. They were going to send a guy out to look at the property first and make sure that it needed to be mowed. Okay, so a guy named Bob from the city come out, and he looked at it. And he goes, yeah, it definitely needs to be mowed. He goes, okay, I'll talk to the owners. So the next day he shows up, and he didn't talk to the owners. He brought a copy of the map that I had just looked at a few days ago online. And he looked at it and he goes like, I knew what it was before he even showed it to me because I'd just seen it. And so I thought that's really weird. Why is he bringing this to me? So anyway, he brings it and he goes, according to this map, you own that property. And he goes, so what I want you to do is go to the courthouse, make sure, and if you don't, then I'll talk to them and get it mowed. Okay? So I said, okay. So anyway, I get on Facebook and I go, I might have found some great news that I own property that I never knew I owned. Okay, so I couldn't believe it. I called Chelsea up and I said, hurry up and get home. I got to get up to the courthouse. I got to find this out. But I'm thinking, it's just not been updated. That's all. The map hasn't been updated. Why would Anita lie to me? Why would Steve lie to me? He bought that land because of the well. Okay, because he wanted to water his farm. He owns the property over here, past that 150 feet by 100, or 50 feet by 150 feet. He owns all the way down here, around. It looks like a big giant sea, and it's big. And in fact, his taxes, he owns lots of properties and houses here in town, and he pays lots of taxes, and he pays them on time. Okay, so that means he was bringing in money for his crops. I never knew if he was struggling or what, but since I looked up the paper, I also looked at his taxes. Okay, but she sold that property. January of this year, she sold all the way around. So when the city told me that, I go like, wow, that dream is gone now. Okay, so I go to the courthouse, and I had to go to 3 different apartments. The last apartment was actually the map, the place where I saw the map at. Okay, so I went to all 3 of them, and all 3 of them said, you own that property. There's no doubt about it. You own it. Okay, so also I got to see who bought the property, the new property, and there was no property that was disconnected from this property. It was always there. You have to understand, for 20 years, I snuck over there and got some peaches off a tree, some berries, and then some other berries, because they never harvest them. You know, he let them alone. And in fact, the peach tree didn't even grow peaches most of the time that it was there. Only like 3 years out of that whole 20 years did it grow anything. But when they would show up, I'd go back over my property. But the whole point was I was actually on my property picking my stuff and not knowing it. Okay, so after I find out that news, I come back home and I'm thinking like, how is this possible? For one thing, I got to mow it now or I'm going to get a ticket. And so I did get it mowed the next day. And I called them up and said, I found out the property is mine and I'm going to mow it. You have to understand, this blows me away. Fantasizing for 15 years of buying this property and doing all sorts of things on it. And the whole time it was mine. But I'm trying to figure out, which I did figure out, why did Anita lie to me and why did Steve lie to me? You know, I mean, here's the thing. If it was just a regular lie, then she would have said, Malcolm, I made a deal with Steve, you know, that he gets to use that well for as long as he wants to. So if you buy this property, then you got to agree to let him do that. Otherwise, I can't sell it to you. And I would have said, okay, no problem. That's fine. So why would she lie, knowing that she could have said that? It's because he was paying her money. I believe it. My hunches tell me he was paying her money. He might have just paid her all in one big lump, and then that was the deal. Or he might have been paying her monthly or yearly or whatever. I remember her saying that the reason why she was selling all these properties, she bought almost this whole block, was because she needed the money. The upkeep was just too much for her. You know, the water heater's going out, all these things that need to be replaced, the roof, the shingles. It was just too much for her. And she wasn't married, you know, she was doing it by herself. And so she sold all that stuff. I bought 2 of her properties, in fact. But I didn't pay one of them off the trailer. I let Ruby take over the payments, and she owned it and bought it. So, I believe faithfully that that's the reason why. But also, there was an incident that happened over 10 years ago where the water line broke on the house. And remember the agreement that both of them said for 100 years, they made sure it was 100 years because they figured he'd die before that. Whoever lives in this house gets to work on that meter and the water line without no problems, no bitching, no nothing. He couldn't do nothing about it. And so the water line broke, and so I dug down by the house and found that it was broken, and the pipe was I had to replace it. It was bad, rusted, no longer a circle. It was, you couldn't do anything with it. Okay, so then I went to the meter to make sure I needed to know exactly the way the water line was in the ground. So I started digging from there. So I got 4 feet away from the house, that dugout, and about 2 feet away from the water meter. Okay, so somebody must have saw this and called Steve up, because he showed up, not too long after getting that part done, and drove in my driveway very fast, and he gets out, and I jump out of the trench, and I say, "Is there a problem?" And he goes, "Yeah, there is a problem." And he didn't really go into why he was upset, but he goes, "I want to talk to the city, and I want to get this meter moved off my property onto your property, and I want them to put a meter in for my property for me to use." So then he comes back, probably about 20 minutes later, and he tells me that the city won't move it. Okay? No duh. It's my meter. They're not going to move the meter off of my property onto my property when it was already on my property. But they did put in a meter for him later on. Okay? So now I know why he got so upset. It's because he didn't want me to go to the city and find out that he was lying. That in the process of fixing this water line, I could have found out. And the reason why he threw the fit was to cover it anytime. You accuse somebody of cheating who is cheating, and they get all mad and all that and say, "You're the one that's probably cheating on me." I see, the anger is the cover. You see? You have to get upset. And by him going and doing it and then coming back and telling me what happened, why would I go to the city? Chances are I would never go, and I didn't. Look, it worked. So I saw him 2 weeks before he died. He was in the pickup truck in front of my driveway, and we stopped and we chatted. He could have told me even at that time that he was getting ready to die that they lied to me. But probably, that ain't going to, you know how pride is, when you told a lie and it's lasted that long. But he could have told me. It was 2 weeks before he died. And Anita, I'm not mad at her. Okay, I'm not upset. I'm happy. I mean, I found out before I died. I could have died in the 20 years of a car accident, a disease, whatever, cancer. I could have died of anything. Okay? And I would have never known that the property that I fantasized about owning, if I ever got the money, was actually mine the whole time. And it's pretty big, 50 by 150 feet. So the whole thing was that I was actually living off 100 and 150 feet. I was not getting my whole 50 feet there over. But I never went out and measured it, because you have to find the markers in the ground first before you can figure out where to start and where to end. So if I knew that, I would have actually measured it. But I never did, and why would I ever doubt Anita? Why? She was old. Why would I do that? She was old, nice, and sweet. We were friends. We hang out. It's just unbelievable. But I am so happy, and now I've got all the ideas back in my head of what I'm going to do now on this property. I went out there and I marked it. We're going to see if I have a conflict with the new owners, if they go like, "I don't want these poles in the ground." And I'm going to say, "Hey, I even brought them back a little bit, like 2 feet away from the edge of or right on the line of my property." I did that on purposely. So, and I got the map right here, so I'll show it to them. I'll say, "Go to the courthouse if you want to." But I have a funny feeling I'm not going to have a problem. But anyway, that's it. I got a video of the property for you can see it. It hasn't been mowed yet, but it has been mowed now. Anyway, I'm happy. I just can't. It's like a birthday present, a Christmas present. It's unbelievable. But at the same time, it's just unbelievable that she lied to me. But it's all right. I'm not going to say nothing to her. She's old, in her 80s or whatever. Forget it. I found out before I died, and that's okay. And that's what really matters. You know what I mean? But still, it's just all because of that stupid well. And see, I wanted the well to water the garden. I could use it in my pond. There was so many different ideas. And I was going to have a well dug on my property. And to find out the whole time it was mine. Unreal. Unbelievable, huh? All right, you guys have a good one. Take care, and God bless.